also what those foods start doing to your mind, your heart, your soul. Because I think they're all, bless you, they're all related.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I see it shaping and connecting.
It's a beautiful, beautiful idea. And do you feel that now do you teach regularly now? Do you teach yoga regularly?
Yeah, it's funny. I put my classes on hold this summer.
Okay.
So what I've been doing is I moved to Connecticut. So I was in Los Angeles teaching in a yoga studio. Mm-hmm. Then I moved out I always laugh. I live in the woods or whatever right now. I mean, it's not that far out of civilization. I am exaggerating a little bit.
It looks pretty woody, like from here.
It's sad because they have hunting about, I don't know, maybe a half a mile down the road from where I am.
So hard.
We're at a huge preserve, which is beautiful for hiking and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But they close it for 2 days to kill the deer, which is awful. So I've been listening to it the last few days, which is really unsettling. And we do what we can to try and fight it here. Yeah. But it's slow, just like everything else. But I mean, as you know, I just had a surgery. I fixed a umbilical herniated, like belly button. I had an umbilical hernia, which I'd lived with since I had my kids. So like for 13 years. Mm-hmm. And so I am down for another 2 weeks, which is really hard. I'm like an unwalked dog. As far as my yoga practice, although I can hike and move around and do some slower forms of yoga. But once I'm back, I think it's time to get back into a studio and teach a little bit and then start doing the retreat element. But I stopped what's in the classes with the studio at my house because I just felt like it was so much. We did it for, a few years. And when you have a studio in your house, you have to, manage the dogs. And we have different dogs now. Yeah. Yeah. One does not like to be managed as well as the other one. But, there's an element of the rest of the family. So I'm still teaching privately, which I do.
Because do you see that veganism is really part of when you're teaching yoga too? Like, does it come
in this
together?
area? No. I can influence as much as I can. Yeah. But I am in an area where they're very resistant to veganism. And I found when I was teaching in a studio out here, the more that I mentioned it, the more people would go away.
Yeah, right.
So, it's like, well, what is my platform? I think my platform is Yoga is Vegan. That's where, you can still find that information. And there's so much where you can listen and really get in depth spiritually about where I stand and how we can all grow. But as far as the yoga practice, I think keeping it to reminding about ahimsa and compassion towards all beings. And I love to get into deep stretch. I'm really obsessed personally with working through barriers in the body through diet and the food, the role that food plays. And so what I do when it gets into some different poses is I do bring up, like, think about what you're putting into your system. Yeah. Think about, people know where I stand. Nobody's, I'll wear my shirts. It says yoga.
I mean,
veganism gets in there for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure they know.
But, I feel like at least the area where I am, you have to have a really soft, gentle approach with that.
And that's also, I mean, you have to know your audience. I always say, you know what I mean? Like you still can work with what you have, but in a different way with different people. Of course, I think that's.
Yes.
And how do you handle that resistance when you feel that kind of resistance? Like, does it affect you when you're teaching, or?
I think that's kind of just how you grow as a vegan. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think when you start out, you're very passionate, right? And then you have to there's a lot of frustration. You're just thinking if people understood, or if people just knew what the truth was, they would all change, but they don't. And so it's hard to kind of process, I think. Yeah. As a teacher, as a vegan, and to detach from where people are, like detached from the outcome, which is a really important lesson.
And in your life, do you still have a lot of people around you that are not vegan?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's also where we learn, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's important to find, like, how can you be a safe middle ground for people where they can feel comfortable experimenting and not be too preachy. And I definitely made that initial mistake of being too preachy about it. So, I think when you back off from it, but although I have a hard time, I've had classes where, somebody will say, oh, there's a great, you can get whatever steak at Costco, and it's a great, at a great price and great quality, and I'm just kind of maybe not so much in this class.
Yeah.
It's an appropriate venue for that, but I think you try not to react to it, but to bring the element of food into as much as you can, so people can just learn and grow.
Yeah, and I definitely, think that what you're saying about, like, just talking about love and compassion and ahimsa can, like, those elements are always there, so it's good to still work with them in a way then,
Yes, because here's the thing. I wasn't vegan when I started yoga. And I think it's important that we all realize that it needs to be a welcome mat.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where the classes, they need to feel safe.
Yeah.
And that's why I like the element of the podcast, because people can drop in and learn without being judged, or they could do it anonymously. Nobody has to know you're listening to this conversation.
Yeah.
Watching. And I think that's a really important part of practice, because it allows people to feel safe and to feel like, I think you're, can you cuss on this podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. It's like if somebody gets mad, they're like, shut the fuck up or whatever. You can do that and feel like it's a safe ground for that, and then allow that information to come in. But when you're in yoga, it's like you have to know that people have been, I think it's a matter of having sympathy and remembering when, which has been a big theme for me the last couple of months. It's like, remember when I wasn't that way.
Yeah.
And finding that common ground where everyone can connect, and then hopefully making it appealing. It's like, well, why can't she move her body that way? How come she's not getting tired?
Yeah.
The one thing I notice in the area, there's a lot of people drink a lot out here on the East Coast. And so my husband and I will see this example a lot, because we're not super young, and people, I'm getting older. It's, I'm falling apart. And it's like, well, maybe if we keep just kind of sort of sharing the foods that we eat, and they go, why aren't these people falling apart? What is that? It could be the diet.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's having patience and learning that way when it comes to teaching the yoga practice. At least knowing your audience is important.
Absolutely. And are your kids vegan?
Oh yeah, family.
The whole family.
Everybody.
And the whole family went vegan when you went, like in 2016? Was it was that a slow process as well?
Everybody had their own time, but we were all vegan by like 2017.
Cool.
But what had happened was, when I went plant-based back in 2011, or mostly plant-based, my husband was really open-minded, and I made my own food, and then I started making family food. And he goes, well, that's ridiculous. He goes, I can eat what you're eating. It's like, okay, which is good, because if I told him, you have to eat this way, maybe there would have been resistance. But since I didn't, he was open to it, and he had watched the documentaries with me, so he was on board. So he was kind of flexitarian. Where, like I said, most of what we were doing was vegan almost all the time. Like, there were exceptions when we went to somebody's house and there was butter or something like that, but it wasn't a lot that whole time. So, it was very minimal, but I still differentiate. as far as how I believe those two should be labeled. But then my kids, they were young. I was dealing with pediatricians at the time who were still kind of scaring me that they needed milk to grow and all this, brainwashing or whatever you want to call it. It's just like indoctrination into the system that it's not like there's an evil. It's just, that's what we've kind of collectively learned for so long, and that's what people believe. And so what I did in the house was I stopped cooking any meat whatsoever, and I allowed dairy for the kids, which now I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I do that? That's fine, whatever. And my older daughter, she started getting more vegan because she was an athlete and she could feel the performance difference, and she's very interested in the environment, and kids connect to animals very easily. And then as a family, I think it was like, I don't know, it was Mother's Day or my birthday or something, where I had saved what we were doing for the afternoon, and we watched, what did we watch? What the Health. That was the documentary that we watched at the time. And both of my girls, after seeing the documentary, were like, that's it, no more. Yeah. That was it. Everybody's vegan. My youngest is like almost a little too in your face. Like you go classes, up in the yoga studio, which is on the 3rd floor. You'd have to pass by her room. And so the door's closed, and she's got this gorilla. Where do I get my protein from? And she had so many different slogan things that she put together on her door. But
ooh, yes.
My daughter's home. Anyway, I'll go back with her door. So like people would walk by her door, and she's got the different posters that she's made, put together on sheets of paper. But then there was like, M is for murder and blah, blah. And I was like, okay, honey, like you got to tame it down. Like put that one on your inside door, please.
Maybe it's not so inviting.
You got to back off a little bit. So she was really into it. But both of my girls on different occasions, especially my older one, has done projects on the like the dangers of dairy, which is really incredible. Yeah. So she's been educating her friends and her schoolmates through those kinds
it's so inspiring. It's so inspiring, because I think they are the future. We need to have these youngsters spreading the word. And it's really inspiring that you also, again, like that you have a vegan family, also creating the connection even in your own house. It's really beautiful. It's a really good thing.
Yeah, and it's always doing different avenues. Like we started doing a vegan potluck.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah, and I think this month, or I don't know if I'm going to get, or maybe next month, but we'll do the Game Changers. I think what we're going to do, we're going to watch the Game Changers, but then also open it up. This isn't just for vegans, but like come enjoy the food, or look at. It's so funny when people are like, well, I don't know what to bring, and it's like, well, do you have a computer? If you ever use Google,
go onto the interwebs. Get inspired.
Just Google it and through the million recipes up there, and let me know if you're still confused.
Just let me know if I can help you. Yes.
Exactly. Like somebody can always pick up hummus. Yeah, right?
I'm sure
you can. I'm sure
you can work that out.
So that's what we need. But whatever.
But that's really good. And do you do that at your house?
We've been doing it at our house. We've been doing last month. We had it at there's a sanctuary close to us.
So cool. So cool.
Just kind of keeping it local. I think the community desperately needs that as vegans, like especially when you're in an area that's not as vegan accepting.
Yeah.
It's really important to have those communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And creating like that feeling of like the doors open here, and showing people through food what love is.
Yeah. I think that's the answer, and that's something I search for all the time. It's like, how do we do it?
Yeah.
How do we do it effectively? Like,
exactly.
I think it's important to have a community for yogis who are vegan, because I feel there's an element in there. Of them being ostracized and kind of made to feel bad. I know a lot of people have felt that way who are vegan in the yoga community. they'd be all open hearts, and it's not always.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have that element of community that way. But then, as always, it's like, it's nice to take care